Muy buenas tardes. Good evening. Welcome to the webinar, The Head of the Giant, the creative process of the work by Cristóbal Gabarrón. Buenas tardes. Bienvenidas, bienvenidos al webinar sobre el proceso creativo de la obra La cabeza del gigante del artista Cristóbal Gabarrón. La sesión será en inglés y podrán también verlo en directo. A su vez, también estará disponible en YouTube de Casa de la India. Good evening. It's my pleasure to introduce this session hosted by Casa de la India in collaboration with the Embassy of India and the Cristóbal Gabarrón Foundation, which is based in Valladolid and also internationally in other countries, in the US and other parts of Spain. We welcome the personalities that will be joining us today in this session. And of course, as usual, we host this together with the Embassy of India in Madrid. Ashish, good evening. Ashish Samuel, Embassy of India. And also, of course, my very, very warm welcome to Alka Pande, who's in Delhi, New Delhi at the moment. Thank you so much for joining us in this session. I know it's not been easy, but you've made really a very, very big effort. So thank you very much. And of course, our dear friend and collaborator, Cris Gabarrón from Gabarrón Foundation. He's the president of the Gabarrón Foundation. Also here, the head office is in Valladolid. And he's also the son of the great artist Cristóbal, whose work we're going to discuss today. So without much further ado, I will first give the floor to Ashish, and then I will briefly introduce a little bit about Alka's background. We've associated with her for many years, and move on straight into Gabarrón's work. And also, of course, Cris, you can mention the work that the foundation is doing. Now I kindly request Ashish to greet the audience and say a few words.
Thank you, Guillermo. Good evening to all. I am Ashish Samuel, Third Secretary at the Embassy of India in Spain. I'm quite glad to be here. On behalf of the Embassy of India, I would like to thank and welcome Cris Gabarrón, the President of the Gabarrón Foundation, and Dr. Alka Pande, art historian, critic, and somebody who has curated several significant exhibitions in India and abroad. Last year, as we were celebrating across the world the 150th birth anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi, the Indian ambassador to Spain invited the Spanish artist Cristóbal Gabarrón to create an artwork which symbolizes the ideals and the life of Mahatma Gandhi. Mr. Gabarrón readily agreed and started working on this creative project. The Head of the Giant is a culmination of that effort. Like any art, it is an interpretation of an idea, and which is in turn open to further interpretations. Today in this webinar, we will be learning more about the creative process behind this profound work of art. We don't have much time, so I'm going to hand over to the experts so that they can enlighten us. And also I want to thank Dr. Guillermo, the director of Casa de la India, for hosting this wonderful event. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ashish. Indeed, this is a journey, and what brings us together is, of course, Mahatma Gandhi, his inspiration, and the 150th anniversary celebrations we hosted starting 2 years ago. And, you know, all that Mahatma Gandhi represents, which is very much connected to art also. And more about this we will hear through the work that we are presenting today. Let me briefly say a few words about Dr. Alka Pande. We have been privileged to work with her on several projects in the past. And I remember very well when she curated an exhibition for us, which was hosted by the Gabarrón Foundation at one of their museums. It was very successful when Arco was the India was a guest country at Arco. I think this is way back, I don't remember when, maybe 2008 or who knows when. So Alka is very much connected also, I have to say, to Spain in the sense that I can feel that her admiration for Spanish art runs deep. And let me briefly say that she is a multi-talented personality, a historian, She has received very prestigious prizes, international awards. Her work is very well known in the curator scene. She has curated a number of exhibitions on contemporary and traditional arts, and the way she bridges also traditional concepts and reinterprets them in contemporary light. It's a long list of publications also that she has been able to bring out over the years, including work that has to do with performing arts, the whole idea of how we look at art. I think this is one of her specialty, which I particularly appreciate, and reinterpreting also to contemporary audiences, viewers, art critics, and also those who are not so familiar with Indian art. I think she has done wonderful work, and she's currently the consultant art advisor and curator of the Visual Arts Gallery Indian Habitat Center in New Delhi. I think because of her, there are more contemporary art museums now in India. You're doing wonderful work. Congratulations, Alka. And we're so proud that we were able to have you on this project with us. And without more introductions, of course, Gabarrón Foundation is represented by its president, Cris Gabarrón, a longtime collaborator of Casa de la India, who will also introduce us to the kind of work the foundation is doing. I now would like to pass the floor to Cris, and maybe shall we see the video first before we move on to the presentation as we had planned? Okay.
Yes.
So Cris, I pass the floor to you, and the video you will present it, of course, and then we have Alka's views on this whole creative process. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Guillermo. Thank you, Ashish. Thank you to all of you that are here. Thank you to Dr. Alka Pande. Thank you, Guillermo, to organize all this webinar around the Gandhi Jayanti, because this is an important date that we need to mark, and that UN also mark as a day, International Day of Not Violence. This day is tomorrow, but we are celebrating today for tomorrow. So thank you very much to be able to organize this and get together all this seminar. I would like first to thank Dr. Alka Pande, because she made an incredible job writing the essay about the head of the giant of my father. And she really went through the creative process, the interpretation of the symbology, and she go deep to the soul. I love that, because great soul is what Tagore called Mahatma Gandhi, great soul. And she went direct to the soul of the painting. And I think that we can have a look to the video, and after the video, we can continue if you want, explaining few key dates of the creative process, or we go directly to Dr. Alka Pande essay and speech, because she has everything in the fingers, in the skin, and in the soul.
Thank you. Shall we see the video then, please?
Yes.
Gandhi representa no solo la no violencia, representa para mí la lealtad absoluta al ser libre, al ser solidario, a ser paciente, a tener una ideología positiva para la humanidad.
It's really inspiring, Chris, and you've put together this beautiful document also. Not everyone has the privilege to see the process of an artist. So I kindly request you and Alka, of course, the insider, outsider, outsider, insider, because you've been, Chris, privileged to see how your father went to the studio in the cold. Sometimes it's been a very, very cold winter. I remember going to see this work myself. And tell us about the process, and then if you please, let's have it as a conversation. Alka, you have prepared a presentation also. I think, Chris, if you would like to share now your personal perspective for a couple of minutes, sure. And then we can introduce Alka's presentation. Thank you.
Sure. So the inspiration of this video, well, what you saw on the video is just a kind of resume of the complete entire creative process that is long and complex. I mean, you saw a kind of brief resume that shows the result. But I will leave the iconography and certain details of the painting to Dr. Alka Pande, but I would like to say that Gabarrón was inspired by Gandhi immediately, and Gandhi has been fountain of inspiration of important leaders like Martin Luther King Jr. or Nelson Mandela, all of them people that fight against the violence and to get civil rights, you know. So my father, to create this painting, the first thing he did as a first step was to gather together all the information to develop and absorb all the essence of this great soul that is Gandhi, as Tagore says, no? And after absorb all this information, he started to make small studies of different process as a second phase, no? These studies, small studies that he created, show him in a natural path the creative process of sketches on papers of different sizes, in a first stage with pencils, ink, mixed media, and tonal ranges. In a third phase, with these sketches, Gabarrón composed and select different concepts. All these concepts and studies and sketches led him to make a definitive approach on the canvas. So he started discovering the right message in the quadrangular format, 2x2, the material, the textures, the colors, and the composition. The first sketches pointed him to the idea of creating a painting with color based on the inspiration gain of flowers that India as a country and the natural environment has all over. No? But quickly he understood that the essence of the character of Gandhi will have to be based on austerity, simplicity, and being natural. With all this, he developed this head of the giant that I leave it here. So I let Dr. Alka Pande to continue talking about the work. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chris. Alka, the floor is yours. We are excited to listen to you. I think you have to unmute yourself. Unmute. Yes.
Namaste. Hello. And I hope I'm saying the right thing in Spanish. Buenos Aires.
No, that was Italian. Right? You travel too much. Buenas tardes. Yeah, yeah. No, it's very
So
similar.
you've said that for me.
Yeah, buenas tardes. Buenas tardes. Yes.
Buenas tardes. So I just want to first compliment the Embassy of India in Spain for starting this wonderful collaboration. And Casa de la India, Guillermo Rodriguez, and also Cris Gabarrón, who has been my active collaborator, who has helped me translate the work of his father, Cristóbal Gabarrón, who I had the pleasure of meeting. And in these pandemic times, really working through different continents and spaces and understanding really the creative process of this wonderful artist, Cristóbal Gabarrón. When Guillermo called me and asked me if I would be able to write, I was absolutely nervous because it was a long while ago that I'd seen the Gabarrón Museum. It was a long while ago that I'd met both Cristóbal and Cris. And, you know, memory can also be a little challenging. But it was really the process of almost 2 to 3 weeks when we worked together almost regularly. I want to also compliment Cris. And, you know, Gabarrón is very lucky to have a son who is so fantastic in sending and being the actual translator. It reminds me of the entire go-between in the Bhakti poetry of Indian art, where the go-between becomes so important. And that's what Cris was for helping me, you know, really understand and feel intuitively the work of Cristóbal Gabarrón, and he's done a wonderful, wonderful Head of a Giant. And you've seen the process and you've understood how well he came down to just black and white, to 2 very stark colors. I have a small presentation which I want to share with you and then come down and talk about Cristóbal Gabarrón's work. I want to begin with an interesting quote of Gandhi where he says, "An error does not become truth by reason of multiplied propagation, nor does truth become error because nobody sees it. Truth stands even if there be no public support, it is well sustained." And Gandhi's idea of truth was so important, his experiments with truth. All these were very important. And we are speaking on Gandhi Jayanti because he was born actually tomorrow. And we are speaking on his eve in 1859. And he continues to remain a name to be talked about when we talk of the freedom struggle of a colonized nation against the imperial British rule. Alvarez, could you just hold on here till I just come to this image? Yeah, just you can go to the wall mural. I also want to talk of the fact that how Gabarrón took his aspects of nonviolence, solidarity, and also the inspiration which he inspired the people of India against the ill treatment of the colonizers. He also provided peace and freedom to the diverse range of the world leaders and thinkers. As you see, the way Gabarrón has juxtaposed this very small man's head and called it the head of a giant. Gandhi was physically a very small man who dressed extremely simple in a cotton dhoti with his upper part of the body bare. He usually walked barefooted even in winter. He just draped an upper garment around his chest, and towards the end, he walked with a staff in his hand. Gandhi was a simple man with simple needs who lived simply, and was one of the most complex thinkers of the time. He brought out in the 20th century the philosophy of satyagraha, which is truth force, Swadeshi, which is a love of one's own country, and ahimsa, non-violence. The people he inspired were great minds, from Nelson Mandela to Martin Luther King, Barack Obama, the Dalai Lama, John Lennon, Albert Einstein, Steve Jobs, Richard Attenborough. These are just few people who we are all familiar with. And therefore, it is no wonder that Gandhi and his philosophy has been a source of inspiration to a large mind, creative minds, just not philosophers. And what I want to now show to you are the various heads which have been done in India. The first one you saw was the wall mural, which was created in the police headquarters in Delhi and was painted by a German graffiti artist called Henrik Bickersch in 2014. He was assisted by Anpu, a woman street painter of Delhi. And then we see the next work, which is the work done by Nandalal Bose, which was created on black and white, a lino print of Gandhi with his walking stick. This work becomes the iconic image representing the non-violence movement and Gandhi himself. Now, in the next image, you will see opposite gate number 1 of the Parliament House is a 16-foot bronze image of Mahatma Gandhi, where he infused a new spirit into the people, awakened national consciousness, and moved masses into action. In fact, Ram Sutar, the sculptor, says, the moment we think of Gandhi, we think of Sadbhavana, good thoughts, ahimsa, non-violence, and truth. With that, we relate incidents from his life. Memory plays an important role because they are incidents and events that defined his persona. History and memory go side by side because they feed the expression of the individual. But when I created Gandhi, it was born out of experience. So all the things came into play. I also want to show you in the next image the contemporary Indian artist Atul Dodia, who in 1999 created a series of Mahatma Gandhi where he tried to reconstruct images from a forgotten biography of the leader. And where did he paint this? He painted these on a metallic surface of shutter doors taken from Delhi shop fronts, and his earlier shutter works were commissioned by none other than Tate Modern for the Century City exhibition. And here again, Gandhi is given a new lease of life with his face on the metallic surface in the series Gandhi on My Canvas. So you keep seeing how Gandhi becomes a recurring leitmotif with many visual artists in the country, not just having been shot by photographers as a documentary narrative. In the next image, what we will see are a set of works of Gandhi, which this artist, Debanjan Roy, has created. He's put a bird on the head of Gandhi in a very playful way so that, it's actually a satirical representation of Gandhi. And here, this young artist hopes to make us recall what he stood for and how many people have also deviated from his ideals. Next image, please. Now, these are a series of images which a modernist painter like A. Ramachandran is creating. A. Ramachandran's first engagement with portraiture of Gandhi began in 1969, when he made preparatory sketches for the Gandhi Darshan mural, Gandhi and the 20th Century Cult of Violence, to commemorate his centenary. The artist has been working on the image of Gandhi ever since 1969. Some years later, in 1918, he designed stamps to celebrate the 50th anniversary of Gandhi's Dandi March as part of his Salt Satyagraha. Close to a decade back, he made sketches of his two monumental bronze sculptures of Gandhi cast in 2012 and 2016. Now, I wanted to show you these works only for you to have a juxtaposition to Cristóbal Gabarrón's work. What you saw was the inside, and now I'm going to show you the outside in. What really moved me was the way Gabarrón, and it's wonderful that we managed to show you the whole process of his creation through the wonderful video which his son Cris put together for us. What was lovely is that Gabarrón went through a series of processes before he came down to the two simple black and white. He realized that the power of the black and white. And for that, I want to also talk to you about the concept of Shwet and Sham, which we have in Indian art. Shwet stands for white, which is for purity. Sham is the color of Krishna. He's also known as Sham Varn, the color of darkness, the color of the midnight darkness. And what we see finally, what Gabarrón does in The Head of a Giant is that he creates out of all the colors that he used, the forms that he used, the flowers that he used, his images of India, the romanticized images of India, because India on the outside, far away, is this very, very beautiful land of saints, of bhakti, of various gods, of goddesses, the cultural diversity, the plural culture of the land. And then sitting in Spain, reading, writing, the soul of a great soul, as Gabarrón understood from the writings of Tagore, who himself was one of the greatest philosophers and artists, a polyglot that we've had. And the way Gabarrón finally, through the various multi-processes that he went, where he used color, where he used all kinds of inks, where he used different floral images from the flora of the land. And then he also saw different films which were being shot during the funeral, which showed how rivers of people moved. He represented this through the spots of black and white. And that's what is very interesting about Gabarrón, that he goes from color to black and white, not from black and white to color. And what we see is this mantle that wraps the mortal remains of Gandhi, transformed for the artist, the bird of peace, a symbol of his kind soul. And what we see, what Gabarrón did, the paintings and sculptures of Gandhi he saw, which he also studied and found regularly in Indian officials and public spaces sites. What makes Gabarrón's work different from the rest as an outsider? What he sees is a repository of ideas determined by truth, peace, and nonviolence. The reason he called the work Head of a Giant, when in reality, physically the head was really tiny, is indeed intriguing. And it is his metaphorical engagement of the work, alluding to the giant and towering thinking of Gandhi, that catches the attention of the artist, and he pursues to underline this with the work for the larger audience. So I will just show you some of the images. If Alvarez, if you could just show the images, look at the process that he did from busyness, the horn-rimmed glasses of Gandhi, which was so iconic, to different brushwork that he used when he tried in the various long and number of heads that he did. Next, please. He's coming slowly, he's paring it down. He's becoming more pure from busyness. He's coming down to an absolute minimalism that you see in the work, and the iconography of the artist of this very small head, which turns into the head of a giant, becomes more and more visible. Here is the artist in his studio, drawing from the number of images that he made, finally creating the large work, which we are very excited to receive in India. And there you see the wonderful iconography that Gabarrón himself came down to ultimately, and how stunningly evocative it is, how it pulls you and makes you, and there is a lot of complexity in this work as well, which also shows the complex thinking of the great soul that Gandhi was. Thank you so much, Cristóbal Gabarrón, for creating this wonderful work and bringing it to India. We are delighted and we are waiting with with a great deal of joyousness in our hearts to receive it. Thank you, Cris, for helping me understand your father's work with such deep kind of philosophy, which he has, and the thought, the reflective thought, which has gone into making the head of a giant. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Alka. You have summarized beautifully and with a lot of soul yourself the passion and the depth of Cristóbal Gabarrón's art and the way he approached the subject. I think it's a privilege to have an artist of his stature to have been able to accept the challenge to approach. Also, we have to say he was very positive, of course, but I believe, Cris, when he knew that the government of India wanted him to do this work, I'm sure he must have been also feeling in awe, because it's such a big figure and it's an alien subject in a way. So I think, Alka, you've summarized very clearly and I think beautifully the complexities also, because you bring in Indian concepts of shade and the black and white, which has these interesting connotations, which in India always have. Also, any color has aesthetics, but also spiritual, religious connotations. And I think we can trace in Gabarrón's work also some kind of universal approach, if I may say. I think his soul is open. He's an open mind. And all of us who know Cristóbal, your father, Cris, know that he was the right person to undertake this kind of challenge. Thank you, Alka, for accepting also for being part of this journey. I'm sure when Cristóbal and Cris will visit India very soon, thanks to ICCR and the Embassy of India's support, I think in February, hopefully, he will go on yet another journey of India, and we will be able to introduce him to artists, museums. I would love him to meet Indian artists and what's the scene there, what is happening, to discuss, to imbibe. We should also let him feel the Indian natural beauty. So I'm sure you will guide us in that process. Sure. Thank you very much, Alka. And I know that you're short of time. If there are any questions, we will forward them to you also.
Surely.
And in any case, you're part of the team now. We will take advantage of that. I have only one question, which you may want to hear. This is for Cris. Cris, how and when did your father come up with the title? You know, the title, The Head of the Giant, is such a brilliant metaphor. If you want to just reply to that, and then I'm sure, Alka, if you have to take leave, you may see us later, and we continue the Q&A question. Okay?
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. See you.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Alka Pande.
Yes.
Okay, so I will briefly answer that question that is very simple. In the very early stages of the creative process, he came out with the Head of the Giant after determining the symbolic line in white through the black of the canvas that represents the ashes. That is the moment when he says, no, I want to create the most important of this little head. There is a huge, humongous head. That is the head of the giant.
Mm-hmm. It's very apt. I think Ashish, you can also come into the conversation if you if you would like to join us. I think to call Mahatma Gandhi a giant, there is a lot of symbolism in that, because he was small in stature, he was a small figure, but a giant in his influence and his thought. So I congratulate your father for having chosen this title. It's really amazing. And we have not told the entire story yet, because the painting, which is now in Valladolid, has been exhibited at the Museo Patio de Herreriano last year, in coordination with the City Council of Valladolid, whom we also thank, and the University of Valladolid and the Patio Herreriano Museum. People in Valladolid and from Spain were able to see the painting live, and it will be traveling to India very soon and be exhibited there. I'm hoping that we will be able to see it soon hanging on a wall in a very significant place in India. Ashish, if you want to say a few final words and welcome also Cristóbal and Cris to India very soon, I would appreciate that. Thank you, Ashish, please.
Yes, indeed, Guillermo. First of all, thanks again to Cris Gabarrón and the Gabarrón Foundation for this, the whole venture. And like Guillermo mentioned, I extend a warm welcome in advance to both of you to India. I'm sure you will have quite a creative journey in India with all the collaborations, the experiences, and I hope much more such profound works will result from that visit. And I feel particularly lucky today to to be part of this, to know more about the creative process behind the work, because generally when you view art, at least for me, we always focus on what the art means to us, to the viewer, or how I would interpret it. But to have a glimpse of the behind the frame, the creative process, the thinking of the creator, and the decisions he made. For example, when he chose the title of the artwork, as he was drawing that white line. So these things, it gives a new prism to watch and appreciate the art. And again, the head of Mahatma Gandhi is something that has been depicted countless times in countless ways, and still it is amusing, and it is it's very something to think about, that you can still create such refreshing and new ideas of that concept. So I thank all of you once again for this wonderful opportunity, and again my heartfelt thanks for the Gabarrón Foundation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashish. And in the meantime, let us celebrate and commemorate Mahatma Gandhi. It's his birthday tomorrow, 2nd of October. And also remind whoever's listening and watching that we have a wonderful statue, a bust of Mahatma Gandhi here in Valladolid, in the heart of Spain, in the Peace Park, which was donated by Government of India in 2001. Inaugurated by the former Prime Minister I.K. Gujral, who came a few days after 9/11, 11 September 2001. He came here. It was scheduled, and he did not cancel his trip because he knew it was the best time to install the bust after what had happened in New York, a very significant and symbolic time. And he came and installed this bust. And he's a very great art lover. He's the brother of Satish Gujral, who's also a famous painter. So if you would like to join us tomorrow for floral offerings, either in Valladolid at Mahatma Gandhi statue, or in Madrid next to the stadium, Bernabeu Stadium, where the other beautiful statue of Mahatma Gandhi is, or on the Canary Islands, wherever you see a Gandhi statue, please think and connect. At least if you can't make it physically, connect with your inner soul with Gandhi for that just one day, and hopefully for more days in the future. Thank you so much. Muchas gracias a cualquiera que esté escuchándonos. Celebremos, conmemoremos la figura de Gandhi. Mañana Gandhi Jayanti. Hoy hemos podido disfrutar de esta visión del interior de un artista, Cristóbal Gabarrón. Muchas gracias, Cris. y dale por favor un abrazo muy fuerte a tu padre. A big hug for your dad, your father, Cristóbal. Thank you, Ashish, for joining us, and again, Alka, for being there with us from New Delhi. Hasta pronto, hasta la próxima.
Thank you so much.